Hey there, Megan Jansen with Employee Wellness Solutions Network. I'm absolutely thrilled today to have my guest and speaking with Clint Malarchuk. Clint, you are helping us on our mission. We are elevating the profile of employee and corporate wellness ahead of Mental Health Day here in Canada with Bell Let's Talk campaign. It's an absolute honor and privilege for you to help me continue this conversation. Thanks so much.
We got to be in it together. Otherwise, it's a one-person battle, and that's not going to win many wars. So
it isn't.
Everybody pulling together.
Yeah, and thank you. And you're in Lake Tahoe. You had just got back from a trip and presenting and speaking and public speaking and sharing your message. So to have you for a few minutes this morning is quite the thing, and I really thank you. You're a former NHL goaltender. You have an amazing story of survival. You're a mental health advocate. You're an author. In Canada, the book is The Crazy Game. You're a husband. You're a father. You're a public figure, and you're using this opportunity to share your story. And Clint, do you want to just give us a bit of a summary of your story? I know so many of us have heard it, but just some of those highlights and lowlights when it comes to who Clint Malarchuk is.
Well, when we're talking mental illness and mental health, as I like to talk about mental health more than the illness part, because I'm in a healthy state now, but I did suffer. I suffered as a kid with a lot of anxiety. Depression episodes, really struggled as a kid, didn't feel normal. Mental illness, I think, at least for me, can go dormant at times, and I think it did for me, but it would come back. And I kind of struggled through, made it to the NHL, learned to, I was never diagnosed with anything until after I cut my jugular vein in an NHL hockey game in 1989. After that, not knowing anything about PTSD, I don't even, those were a group of words back then. I wasn't diagnosed with anything until about a year later. Things really went south on me as far as my depression, anxiety, everything that I was probably predisposed to with mental health, or in that case, mental illness that I had, magnified, exploded, 1,000 times over. My depression, anxiety became, over the top, OCD symptoms, obsessive compulsive disorder. It really got bad. And once I got diagnosed, after that, because things really, I had a reaction to some medication that almost ended my life. My heart had stopped. They thought it might have been a suicide attempt. And I said, no, this is what I'm going through. I hadn't slept in 10 days. And they said, this is what you are diagnosed with. And then it was a few years of different drugs, different doctors trying to get the right cocktail, so to speak, and now we're so much quicker getting those medications right. We've come a long ways, medication-wise, therapy-wise, counseling, all those things, and thank God we're making progress. But back then, it was a big struggle to get the right dose and to get on the way. Once I did get healthy, though, I lasted pretty much 15 years of doing really well, taking medication, therapy, counseling, and everything. But over time, the medication started to wear off. But your body can get immune to it. So not really being aware and keeping on top of that, which was my fault of lack of education on my part, trying to understanding that this has to be maintained to a certain degree in this area and that area. I started to falter, leading me into a spiral downwards. I was self-medicating with alcohol. The depression came back, the anxiety. And in 2008, I attempted suicide. And that was a remarkable thing that I survived because I used a gun, and I have a bullet in my head today, which led me to get more help, better help even. I was in a treatment center for 6 months, diagnosed again, and got the right medication, really got educated on what I have to do today to keep my balance. But waking up out of a coma with a bullet in your head, by the grace of God, I feel God spared me for those that are still suffering. And so that's what I do today. I feel that, that I'm in a good place now. but I know that darkness that a lot of people are still in. And unfortunately, especially in our peer groups or our workplaces, we hide, we suffer in silence. I mean, even when I played hockey, I was a team clown, yet on the inside, I was a mess. On the outside, apparently, I looked great, you know, funny, outgoing. We're great actors. We can turn it on when we need to, but on the inside, it was a jungle in there, and I was trying to walk through it all by myself. And because of the stigma, Megan, it's the stigma, and we're getting better and better. And Bell, you know, does a great job with Let's Talk and the Canadian Mental Health Association and with our awareness. But still, you know, I always like if I learned too that, you know, I have a chemical imbalance. I don't produce enough serotonin in my brain. And really, you know, what's the difference? If you're diabetic, are you ashamed or anything? No, it's a chemical imbalance though, but there's no stigma to it. You just take your insulin but with mental illness, you can't really see it. That perception of, oh, they're, you know, they're crazy, or, you know, and we're getting more and more education on that depression, anxiety, a lot of these things are a chemical imbalance, and it can be fixed. But it's the stigma that we got to fix and make it okay for an employee or anybody in society to able to go in and get help. And there's no embarrassment or shame with this.
Yeah, in one of your interviews, you spoke about how, you know, the NHL is a job. I mean, in translating that back to the corporate world, and in the job now, there are supports available for athletes and players to speak out and to talk about how they're doing and how they're feeling. If we were to bring that back to the workplace, and still that word stigma is still here today, and you are absolutely correct that we have to continue this conversation to allow people the opportunity to speak out and share how they're doing. And where we're, I think, falling short is there's still that fear in the workplace where there's, you know, that stigma of feeling weak or not able to do your job, but, you know, you say someone breaks a leg, and it's so much easier to see it. And so with the mental illness and mental health concerns some people have, I mean, that's the challenge. What are your thoughts on bringing it back to the workplace and still having that stigma around?
Right. Well, we can all relate to physical pain because we know what pain is. You hit your hand or whatever. But mental illness you can't see, so it's a lot of people fear the things they don't understand. And if you don't understand mental illness, you've probably got that stigma of like you don't understand it, so you think all the other different things, like the person is dangerous. Even, you know, it's all these crazy perceptions that we still have to get over. If you're diagnosed with a disease, let's say cancer, oh my God, you go to your boss, say, look, I'm going to be taking treatment. The boss is going to go, oh, what can we do? You take time off, work at home, do it. You know, but if you got you're diagnosed with bipolar or depression, any of these mental illnesses, it's very hard for that person to go into the boss and say, and if they do go into the boss, is the boss going to say, oh, what do you need? You know, that's where we're getting to, where a boss and people are understanding and educated on mental illness, that it's no different than a physical ailment, that people can go in and say, look, I need time off, or I've been diagnosed with this. I might have to work at home more, or, you know, but we still have to get over that fear of being able to be diagnosed and going in and saying, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, but I can get better, and I will get better with help and treatment.
Absolutely. And, you know, to echo that is everybody has a story. Everybody is affected. Everybody is. So, I mean, that's the thing I think we also have to realize is that if somebody yourself isn't struggling with mental health or mental illness concerns, you know somebody who is. And so these tips and strategies, and do you have any to share in terms of some strategies that maybe employees listening or executive leaders listening today to our Wellness Wednesday video series, any takeaways that you can share?
I think compassion and empathy is so big, especially for our leaders. I know I've played for different coaches. The ones that really cared for me as a person, not just a hockey player. Like, what's your life? How's your life going? Everything good at home? Those type of things. Those are the coaches or leaders that I would go through a brick wall for. So, you know, it's a win-win, really, to have that compassion for an employee, or the understanding a little bit, or education of mental illness. That it's no different than something physical. It's very, very painful. That's why I tell people that don't know what it is. I just say, you know what, it is more painful than any physical operations, surgeries, and I've had many that I've ever been through. You know, that compassion for people is like, everybody's fighting a battle you know nothing about. And to find out, like, even if you don't struggle with mental illness, you've gone through some trauma in your life, or some you know, emotional pain, whether it's divorce, lost a loved one. And I just ask people to understand that when they were in that maybe a little bit depressive state, that's what it's like for some of us, but maybe worse or magnified. And so that compassion and empathy, that it's no different than anything physical ailment. So, you know, for people to understand that people are human, and we all fight battles. And we usually do it in silence because of the stigma. And we don't have to, because we need to continue the conversation, keep talking, educating people that, you know, it's a lot of people go through stages where they're not mentally ill, but they go through a stage where they're total depression, anxiety, or things like that. And they come out of it. And a lot of times it's through therapy or psychology, things like that, or medication temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just have to understand that it's no different than anything else that people can go through with the physical pains or ailments or diseases.
Very well said, Clint. Are there any, as we tie up our discussion today, I could talk to you for hours, any final thoughts that you'd like to share on this topic of mental health awareness, as we are definitely elevating this profile this week?
Well, you know, I think it's important that people understand that it's an illness or a sickness. It's not a weakness. I mean, I played in the NHL when I was mentally struggling, and that is a job that you have to be very mentally strong. And I always kind of thought, I'm mentally weak because I'm so anxious, and I go through these depressive stages, and I have OCD. You know what? That's the illness. That has nothing to do with. I look at our military; they get damaged with PTSD. How strong do you have to be to go and, you know, go to do that job? Mental toughness. They're the most mentally tough men and women that I can think of to do that job. And yet they come back and they're damaged and have PTSD and struggle with mental illness. It's an illness, not a weakness. And it can be helped and cured. And the other thing is, especially through my book that I got so much feedback from, I had no idea. I thought I was the only one. I know there's other people that struggle, but they're not as bad as me. And my God, there's so many people that struggle, but we don't know that so much because so many people like myself did it in silence and tried to hide it because of the stigma.
That's your purpose. That's why, you know, we are listening and truly appreciate what you say in this this topic of mental health and mental illness. Clint Malarchuk, former NHL goaltender, amazing advocate for mental health, author of The Crazy Game. It's been an honor for me to share these last few minutes with you. And thank you for continuing to help us elevate this profile of healthy people in our workplaces. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan, and keep doing what you're doing too. It's we need people like you that, you know, get out there on the internet and media and everything else. So we all have a story. We all got to share it.
Thank you. Well said. Thanks, Clint.
Thank you.